welcome to the unholy script. There's a special kind of silence that only exists miles beyond a map. Eli Rivers learned that silence doesn't comfort, it listens. He'd left the highway before sunrise, chasing a shortcut a trucker once swore existed, a narrow logging road that never appeared on GPS. Now, hours later, the last bar of signal had vanished and the world had turned into a tunnel of trees. The sky, a dull sheet of pewter, pressed low enough to feel heavy on his shoulders. Pine needles whispered across the windshield like dry fingers. The compass on the dashboard spun in lazy circles as if drunk on static. He told himself this was nothing, just another detour. But deep down, something older than reason began to stir, the feeling of being noticed. The tires hit gravel, then mud. Branches arched over the truck, merging into a cathedral of shadows. Every few yards, the forest seemed to breathe, exhaling mist that rolled across the path and curled around the headlights. He thought he saw shapes inside it, the quick shift of a shoulder, a face gone too soon, but it was only vapor, he told himself. He laughed once, out loud, to break the tension. The sound died faster than it should have. At the 2-hour mark, the forest opened into a clearing. He slowed, expecting to see an old mill or ranger station. Instead, he found the remains of a wooden sign half buried in mud. The letters had peeled away, leaving only one word carved deep enough to survive rot: return. He leaned out the window. No birds, no wind. Even the truck's engine seemed muted, as if the air itself were pressing against the sound. Eli checked his phone. Blank screen. He tapped the compass again, still spinning. He muttered, "Fine, you win," and shifted into reverse. That's when the truck shuddered, coughed twice, and died. He turned the key again. Nothing. Not a click, not a hum. Only the echo of his own breath fogging the windshield. He climbed out, the door creaking like it hadn't moved in years. Cold mist hugged his boots, seeping through the laces. The air smelled metallic, sharp, almost electrical. Behind him, the road he'd driven seemed narrower now, as if the trees had leaned closer while he wasn't looking. He circled the truck, checked the tires, the fuel cap, the hood latch. Everything looked fine. Then he noticed it, the driver's door swinging slowly open. He was sure he'd shut it. He froze. The keys that had hung from the ignition were gone. His heart climbed into his throat. He scanned the ground, expecting to see them glinting in the dirt. Instead, a faint indentation caught his eye, a single footprint leading away from the driver's side into the woods. Too shallow to be fresh, too clear to be old. Someone out here? He called. No answer. Just the creak of the truck door easing wider until it tapped the frame and stopped. He thought about the stories he'd heard. Campers vanishing off trails, hikers found miles from their gear with no memory of walking there. Urban legends, he used to say. But this place didn't feel urban. It didn't feel like anywhere. He took one careful step toward the trees. Mist swallowed his boots. The forest leaned in again, whispering with the sound of paper rubbed together. He whispered back, almost pleading, "I just need my keys." Somewhere in the distance, metal jingled once, the exact sound of keys on a ring. He turned toward it. The sound came from the direction of his own footprints. But there was only one set visible in the mud, and it was walking back toward the truck. Eli followed the sound of the keys until the forest grew so thick, daylight thinned into strands. Every direction looked the same: moss-covered trunks, vines tangled like veins, soil that swallowed sound. He walked slower now, the way a man walks through a room where something is listening. 100 feet ahead, between the trees, he noticed a shape. At first, he thought it was a boulder. Then the fog shifted, and he saw corners, straight lines, the remains of a small cabin, half collapsed and being reclaimed by the woods. One wall had fallen inward. The roof sagged beneath a nest of vines. And yet, against all reason, a faint orange light pulsed inside, steady and warm. Like a heartbeat behind ribs of wood, he hesitated at the threshold. No footprints led to the door. No path at all. Still, the light called to him, not like a beacon, but like recognition. Something inside knew him. He pushed the door open. It swung without resistance, whispering across the dirt floor. The interior smelled of pine sap and old rain. A single lantern sat on the ground, burning with no wick, no fuel, just a quiet hum that felt electrical. Its glow reached the far wall where furniture leaned in strange half positions, chairs facing corners, a mirror against the floor, an empty cradle rocking though no wind moved. He called out, "Hello?" Silence answered. Then, a second later, his own voice replied from deeper in the forest, perfectly identical, only slower. "Hello." He stepped back, pulse climbing. It echoed again, closer this time, repeating his words, his tone, his breath. Each repetition was delayed, like the woods were practicing the sound of him. "Who's there? Who's there?" He felt it now. The rhythm wasn't an echo. It was response. Eli moved toward the lantern. The glow shifted with him, like a living thing adjusting its gaze. On a table nearby sat a photograph, yellowed and curled with moisture. It showed a man standing beside a truck identical to his. Same make, same dent in the bumper. And the man, same jacket, same scar on the chin, him. But the background was wrong. Behind the truck, the cabin stood whole, new, its windows clean. Lantern light bright and steady. He ran his thumb across the photograph. The surface was still damp, the ink faintly bleeding, as if it had just been printed. A breeze stirred the door open wider. He turned and froze. Outside, in the fog, he saw movement. A figure stood between two trees, facing him. Its outline blurred at the edges, as though the air didn't know how to hold its shape. It didn't move closer, but every blink brought it nearer. He backed into the cabin. "Stay there," he whispered. "Stay there," the echo replied, this time from inside the room. The lantern's glow dimmed, shrinking to a pulse the size of a candle flame. The air turned heavy, thick enough to feel. He reached for the photo again, but it was gone. In its place lay another, newer one, the same angle, same background. Except this time, Eli was standing at the cabin door, staring straight into the lens. His mouth was open, frozen mid-sentence. Though he didn't remember speaking, he stumbled outside, desperate for air, for logic. The figure in the fog was gone. Only the sound of his boots crunching wet leaves remained, until he realized it wasn't his own pace he was hearing. Someone somewhere was walking in sync with him, half a beat behind. He stopped. The sound stopped too. Slowly, he turned toward the direction he'd come from. The trail he'd walked now ended at a wall of black trees. No truck. No road. The forest had closed its mouth around him. Behind him, inside the cabin, a voice whispered his name, softly, tenderly, like someone remembering it for the very first time. By the time Eli returned to the cabin, the lantern had gone dark. Only the faint light of dusk filtered through the broken roof, soft and gray, touching everything with the color of dust. He could no longer tell how long he'd been wandering. Minutes felt like hours, and the forest outside no longer looked like it had an end. The air inside was colder now, dry and metallic, the way an old attic feels after years of being sealed shut. He reached into his jacket pocket and froze. The photograph was there again. Only this time, his reflection in it was smiling. He dropped it. It fell face down, but a flash of light rippled across its surface, like something behind the paper had blinked. Eli's breathing turned shallow. He pulled out his flashlight, clicked it on, and swept the beam across the cabin. The walls looked cleaner now. The floorboards, newer. In one corner stood a cracked mirror he hadn't noticed before, tall and framed in tarnished brass. Its surface shimmered faintly, even though no light touched it. He whispered, That wasn't there before. And yet the mirror's reflection disagreed. It showed the same cabin, the same man, but different time. Sunlight streamed through the windows. The cradle rocked gently. And in the reflection, a woman stood behind him. She wore a pale dress the color of candle smoke, her eyes hollow but kind. Her lips moved silently. He couldn't hear the words, but they formed his name. Eli. He spun around. Nothing, only empty air. He turned back to the mirror. She was still there, closer now, her hand reaching toward his shoulder. He took one step forward, trembling. The glass rippled like the surface of a pond. Behind her, the reflection of the cabin was changing, cleaner, brighter, almost alive. The walls in the reflection pulsed faintly with light, like veins beneath skin. And the lantern in that other room began to glow again. Though his remained cold and dark, the woman mouthed something else, slower this time. He leaned in, eyes narrowing, trying to read the shape of her words. Don't forget. The mirror flickered. The reflection of the room emptied, leaving only his face, except his reflection didn't move when he did. It stared back, breathing softly through lips that didn't match his own rhythm. He took a step back. His reflection stepped forward. For a long moment, they just watched each other. Then, from inside the mirror, his reflection tilted its head and whispered in his exact voice, "I told you not to come back." The sound wasn't an echo. It came from behind the glass, close enough that he felt the warmth of his own breath coming through. Eli dropped the flashlight. Its beam rolled across the floor and landed on the photograph again. Now it showed two figures standing in the cabin door, both Eli. One looked alive. The other, faded like a double exposure caught between seconds. He knelt down to pick it up, but before his fingers touched the paper, it slid an inch away. He froze. Then it slid again, dragged by nothing visible, inching toward the mirror. He whispered, "No." The photo lifted upright on its edge, standing like a paper blade, trembling in the air. Then it pressed flat against the mirror's surface and vanished through the glass, as if it had been swallowed. Eli's pulse hammered in his chest. He reached for the mirror, pressed his palm against the surface, and felt it push back. He stumbled away, tripping over the cradle. It rocked once, twice, and stopped with a soft knock, like something had caught it mid-swing. A faint hum filled the room. The mirror began to glow faintly again, but this time it wasn't reflecting anything. It was showing something, a hallway lined with doors, each cracked open just enough to reveal shadows moving behind them. One door creaked wider. From the dark beyond it, a child's whisper escaped. "You shouldn't have found this place." Eli stumbled toward the cabin door, but it was gone. The wall where it had been was now solid, seamless wood, no handle, no frame. He turned back toward the mirror. The hallway inside was empty again, except for one new figure standing where he had been seconds ago. A perfect reflection, staring out. The reflection smiled once, then reached forward, not toward the glass, but through it. When Eli awoke, dawn had already touched the cabin. A pale, colorless light leaked through the cracks in the roof, the kind of light that doesn't warm, only exposes. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he had actually slept, or simply blacked out. The mirror stood silent in the corner. Its surface was dull now, as if whatever had lived behind it had retreated for the day. But the cradle was still rocking, softly on its own. Eli sat up, throat dry, every muscle trembling. He whispered to himself, "It wasn't real. It can't be real." But when he looked down, the floorboards beneath him bore faint, circular scorch marks, exactly where he'd dropped the flashlight the night before. Something had happened. Something that wanted him to remember. He searched the cabin again, desperate to find some proof that could explain it. A mechanism, a reflection trick, anything. But instead, he found a loose floorboard near the hearth. Beneath it, wrapped in decayed linen, was an old leather-bound journal. The cover was cracked and warped from moisture. But one thing stood out immediately, a name etched into the leather in uneven strokes. Property of Mara L. He didn't know the name, but he'd seen her, the woman from the mirror. The first pages were written in delicate, slanted handwriting. We came here to begin again. To live free, off the grid. No noise, no machines. Just the land, but the land remembers what we forget. Eli turned the page, his fingers shaking. The entries grew darker. The writing, more erratic. There's a voice that comes from the glass. It says it can help us build paradise if we listen. But the more we listen, the less we remember who we are. He flipped another page, and his stomach tightened. A sketch was scribbled across 2 pages, the same mirror, the same brass frame. And behind it, faint outlines of human figures, hundreds of them, stretching into darkness. It feeds on reflection, on what we believe we see. Each person who looks too long leaves a part of themselves behind. The next page was torn out violently. Only a smear of dark brown, faded with time, remained on the paper's edge. Eli's breath quickened. He whispered, "Mara, what did you do?" He turned to the final entry. The handwriting had changed completely, shaky, desperate. "It won't let us leave. The doors are gone. The sky doesn't move anymore. If anyone finds this, don't look into the glass. It doesn't show you. It chooses you." A noise snapped him from the page, the sound of something sliding across wood. He looked up. The mirror was turned. It now faced him directly. Eli froze. The mirror's surface rippled faintly again, and something pale flickered within. A face, half-formed, mouthing silent words. He stepped closer, whispering, "What do you want from me?" The reflection answered, but this time, not with a voice. Instead, words began to form across the mirror's surface, etched by unseen hands. "You already said yes." Eli stumbled back. His heart pounded so violently that he thought it might burst through his ribs. He hadn't said anything. Not out loud. But deep down, in the moment he decided to stay another night. Maybe he had agreed to something. The journal slipped from his hand. It fell open to a page he hadn't seen before. Faint words, written in fresh ink, though the ink should have dried decades ago. "Welcome back, Eli." He froze. That wasn't possible. His name couldn't be there. The handwriting matched his own. The air thickened. The light outside dimmed again, like the forest had swallowed the sun. Eli backed away from the journal, shaking his head. He whispered, "This can't be happening." From somewhere inside the walls, a slow, rhythmic tapping began, as if something were knocking from the other side of the wood. 3 beats. A pause. 3 more. He glanced at the mirror. In the reflection, he saw the same room, except someone was sitting in the cradle now. Small hands, pale as ash, gripping the edges. He turned toward the cradle, empty. Back to the mirror, the child looked up. A faint, childish voice echoed in his mind. Soft as a lullaby, "It's your turn to remember." Eli fell to his knees, clutching his head as the mirror's glow flooded the room. And somewhere in the distance, the forest began whispering his name. The mirror's light dimmed slowly, fading like the last ember of a dying fire. Eli stayed kneeling for what felt like hours, unable to move, afraid that if he blinked, the child's reflection would return. When he finally gathered enough strength to stand, the journal was gone. Only the hollow outline of where it had lain remained on the dusty floorboards. He whispered into the still air, "Who are you?" The cabin answered with silence, and then, faintly, the sound of something dragging across glass. Eli turned. The mirror now shimmered faintly, its surface breathing like living skin. The reflection no longer showed the cabin. Instead, it was a corridor, long, dark, endless, lined with candles that flickered without smoke. He stepped closer. his reflection bending strangely, unnaturally. For every step he took, the reflection delayed by a fraction of a second, as if it were deciding whether to follow. When he stood only a foot away, words began to carve themselves into the lower frame. One by one, names appeared, each letter etched by unseen hands, glowing faintly gold. Mara. He read aloud, voice trembling. Then another name appeared. Then another, dozens, hundreds. Each name was followed by a date. The last year they'd been seen alive. Eli traced one with his finger. Thomas R. 1891. The glass was warm. Too warm. He felt a heartbeat behind it. A realization hit him like a flood of cold water. These weren't carvings. They were signatures. Every name was a reflection that had once stood where he was standing now. Every person who had stared too long, stayed too long, believed too much. He whispered, "How long have you been watching?" The reflection behind the glass smiled, not his reflection, but something inside it, wearing his face. Then a sound, faint, melodic. The lullaby again. Sleep and we'll make you whole again. Eli stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the rocking cradle. He picked up a splintered piece of wood and hurled it at the mirror. It struck the surface with a dull thud and vanished into it like water. The mirror rippled, swallowing the light. Then, silence. He stared, breath shallow. "It can't be real," he muttered. "It can't." He ran for the door, but when he flung it open, there was no forest. Just a black, endless void filled with faint whispering voices, murmuring words he couldn't understand. When he looked down, the ground was gone. Only reflection. The world outside had turned into a vast mirror, stretching in all directions. He slammed the door shut. The cabin still existed behind him, but something had changed. The windows now showed other rooms, not his. Bedrooms, attics, cellars, all dimly lit, all empty but for mirrors inside them. The reflections began to move on their own, independent of the glass. Figures emerging, stretching, whispering. He covered his ears and shouted, "Stop! Stop!" But their whispers grew louder. Overlapping, hundreds of voices speaking through the glass at once. "You shouldn't have come. We were like you. We all wanted to disappear." And then, silence again. He turned toward the mirror. The names on the frame were glowing brighter now, pulsing softly like veins of light. And among them, a new line was carving itself slowly. Eli H-2025. He stumbled back in horror. No, 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 no. He ran to the hearth, grabbed a chunk of broken brick, and hurled it. This time, the mirror didn't absorb it. It shattered. A sound exploded through the cabin, not like glass breaking, but like 1,000 voices screaming at once. The shards fell across the floor. And yet, every piece still reflected his face. Each reflection moved differently, some smiling, some crying, some mouthing words he couldn't hear. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. As faint laughter echoed from the splintered glass dot, then one of the shards rolled toward him. It stopped at his feet. Inside it, his reflection whispered clearly, "Breaking it doesn't free you." The mirror's fragments began to hum softly, sliding together like metal drawn by a magnet. Eli could only watch as they reassembled, piece by piece, into a perfect, unbroken surface again. Only now, it showed no reflection at all. Just a faint, human heartbeat pulsing from within the glass. Eli sank to the floor, trembling, every muscle tense as if the cabin itself were pressing against him. The shards had reformed into a flawless surface, and now the faint heartbeat pulsed like a warning. He forced himself to breathe. "It can't take me. It can't," he whispered. But the words felt hollow. The mirror had already shown him too much, too many faces, too many names, all leading to the same conclusion. Escape would not be simple. And then, the faintest glimmer of light appeared in the corner of the cabin. A crack in the wall, barely wide enough to see through, shimmered with an unnatural glow. Ele approached cautiously, the wooden floorboards groaning beneath him. The light was warm, inviting, almost painfully pure against the oppressive shadows of the cabin dot as he peered through the crack. He saw the world beyond, the forest moonlit and silent, as though untouched by the mirror's influence. For the first time in hours, he felt a flicker of hope. Could it be real? He asked himself. Then a whisper came, low, almost seductive from the mirror. The light is a trap. Choose carefully, Eli. Ele froze, every instinct screaming to run, yet something inside urged him toward the glow. He leaned closer, and the warmth of the light seemed to seep into his skin, filling him with a strange clarity. He realized the mirror wasn't just showing reflections. It was feeding on fear, on hesitation, on the moments he let himself question reality. The light, by contrast, offered clarity. A way forward, but it came at a price. He had to confront the mirror directly. He turned back to the glass. The names were still there, glowing softly, his own now included. And among them, a single new word appeared, scrawled like frost across the surface. Trust. Eli swallowed hard. Trust what? The reflection? The light? Himself? Slowly, he moved toward the mirror, hand trembling. He had to touch it, had to face whatever force had pulled him into this world of whispers and echoes. His fingers brushed the surface, cold, freezing, yet alive, vibrating with the heartbeat of all those trapped souls. Suddenly, the cabin shook, a soft tremor, like the breath of some massive creature moving beneath the earth. The shadows lengthened, stretching across the walls, floor, and ceiling, reaching toward him like fingers. A low, murmuring chant began, almost imperceptible at first, growing louder. Return what is taken. Release what is bound. Eli's heart raced. He realized the mirror had not intended to trap him. It wanted recognition, acknowledgement of every name it held, every lost soul, every face it had consumed. And then, a flash, the shards separated, lifting from the floor and hovering in the air, spinning slowly. They glowed brighter, reflecting not the cabin, but the forest outside, the light he had seen. It was as though the mirror itself had become a window, a threshold, and the whispered chants became a choir of lost voices guiding him. Step through, they urged. Step through and be free. Eli hesitated, one hand still on the glass, one toward the glow beyond the crack. He realized the choice: stay and risk being consumed by the mirror forever, or step into the unknown, leaving behind all he had known. Tears pricked at his eyes. The mirror pulsed again, faster, like a warning, like a heartbeat counting down. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and stepped forward. The moment he crossed the threshold, the shadows collapsed inward. The cabin seemed to sigh, then vanished. Eli opened his eyes and found himself in the forest under the pale moonlight, safe. The wind whispered softly through the trees, and for the first time in hours, he felt calm. But as he looked back toward where the cabin had been, he realized the mirror still existed, somewhere, waiting, watching. The forest was silent, the moonlight steady. Yet in the distance, a faint reflection shimmered between the trees. Eli knew one thing with certainty: the mirror had not given up. It had only allowed him a temporary reprieve. Eli's breath came in shallow bursts. His feet crunched softly on the frost-covered leaves, the sound startling in the unnatural stillness. He told himself he was free, the cabin, the mirror, the whispers, all behind him. But the forest had a voice of its own. Shadows twisted between the trees, moving with a rhythm that mimicked his heartbeat. Every rustle, every snap of a twig, made him flinch. He forced himself to focus. It's just the forest. Nothing else. Nothing can touch me here. Yet something felt wrong. A pale shimmer appeared, fleeting, at the edge of his vision. He spun, but there was nothing there. Only branches, tangled and silent, and the faint glow of the moon on the frost. Eli pressed on, walking cautiously, feeling the weight of invisible eyes upon him. The air was colder now, a subtle chill that seeped through his coat and into his bones. A whisper brushed against his ear, soft, barely audible, yet unmistakable. "You cannot run." He froze. Not again. Not here. Turning slowly, he scanned the forest. The shadows were thicker now, stretching in unnatural angles. They were moving independently of the trees, weaving in and out of the moonlight. Eli's hand instinctively went to his pocket, empty. No talisman, no object to protect him. Just the forest, his mind, and the memory of the mirror. A voice, deeper this time, emerged from the darkness. "Do you remember?" Eli's stomach tightened. He remembered. Every face, every name from the cabin. Every soul trapped in the mirror. It wasn't just the mirror that lingered. It was them. They had followed him. He stumbled forward, heart racing, each step making the shadows react, twisting faster, pressing closer. The whispers grew louder, overlapping, a chorus of sorrow and warning. Face what you fled. Face what you fear. Suddenly, the forest seemed to shift. Trees that had been distant now loomed closer, their trunks warped, branches curling toward him like fingers. Eli felt a pull in his chest, a magnetic force drawing him toward the center of the trees. There, in a small clearing, moonlight fell upon a shallow pool of water. The surface rippled, though there was no wind. Eli stepped closer. The reflection wasn't his own, it was the cabin. The shards of the mirror floated, spinning slowly, beckoning him. Come back. Complete the journey. Eli's knees shook. He wanted to turn, to run, to disappear into the misty forest, but he knew he couldn't. The mirror's pull was not just fear, it was a lesson. A challenge. He stared into the water, his reflection merging with the shards. Faces emerged, some familiar, some strange, all silent, all watching. What must I do? He thought. The shadows began to encircle him, not threatening with violence, but with suffocating weight. Each step he took toward the water made them tighten, pressing into his senses, testing his resolve. A cold breeze whispered across his neck. Only through acceptance. Only through understanding. Eli understood. He had fled from the mirror, from the whispers, from the guilt of leaving so many trapped souls behind. But escape alone would not grant him freedom. He had to confront the truth, acknowledge what the mirror reflected. The fear, the obsession, the guilt that bound him. A single tremulous breath, and he knelt beside the pool. The shadows paused, almost respectfully. The ripples settled. "I see you," Eli whispered. "I see everything. I am ready." The water shimmered brighter, and for a heartbeat, the forest fell completely silent. The mirror's influence pulsed softly, like a distant heartbeat finally calming. Then the forest exhaled. The shadows recoiled, retreating into the mist. Eli rose slowly, heart pounding, knowing this was not the end, only the beginning of understanding what freedom truly meant. Somewhere in the darkness, a faint shimmer of the mirror lingered, as if it had followed him just far enough to remind him. The forest would always remember. Eli's body ached from the night's journey. Frost clung to his coat, and the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his next move. The clearing with the pool lay behind him now, but its memory lingered like a weight in his chest. He pressed forward, guided by a faint trail of disturbed leaves and the soft whisper of wind through the trees. Every step seemed heavier than the last. Each shadow that flickered in his periphery was a reminder that he was not alone. Am I really ready? The forest seemed to answer. The mist thickened, curling around his ankles, twisting like pale fingers. Shapes began to form, vague outlines of figures, distant yet familiar. Faces from the mirror, floating just beyond clarity. They were watching, silent and patient, urging him forward. Eli stumbled onto a narrow path, barely visible, flanked by trees that arched high overhead. The branches interlaced, creating a tunnel of gloom. At the path's end, a stone arch appeared, ancient and overgrown with moss. It felt different, sacred, terrifying. A whisper from the shadows. Beyond lies the choice. Beyond lies the truth. Eli approached cautiously. His reflection in the dew-soaked leaves seemed distorted, fragmented, a reminder of all he had run from. The mirror's echo hummed faintly in his mind, a call he could neither ignore nor fully understand. As he stepped beneath the arch, the forest seemed to shift. Time slowed. The air thickened, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something older, something unseen. The figures from the mist gathered closer. Not menacing, but insistent. They weren't there to harm him, they were there to witness. To guide. This is it. The threshold. A soft light began to radiate from the ground beneath the arch. It shimmered like liquid silver, illuminating the forest in cold clarity. In its center lay a small stone basin filled with water. The surface rippled, but no breeze stirred it. Eli knelt. The reflection was different this time. Not the cabin. Not himself. The basin mirrored the forest as it truly was, serene, untouched, and infinite. Yet beneath that serenity, the shadows of his fears, obsessions, and guilt swirled like smoke in water. You cannot leave unchanged, the whisper said. Eli closed his eyes, feeling the forest press against his mind. He thought of all he had fled, the mirror, the cabin, the faces of the lost. He thought of every step, every fear, every time he had turned away from the truth. I see it all, he murmured. I see the shadows. I see myself. And I accept it. The basin pulsed with light, soft and steady, as if responding to his acknowledgement. The figures in the mist leaned closer, almost reverent. The forest exhaled, a sound like wind through hollow trees, and for the first time, Eli felt the weight on his chest lift. The shadows recoiled fully into the mist. The forest seemed to relax, welcoming him into its rhythm. Eli rose slowly, his legs trembling. The archway ahead shimmered, revealing a path bathed in golden light. The forest beyond calm and still. Freedom is not escape. It is understanding. He stepped onto the path, leaving the basin and the arch behind. The figures dissolved into the mist, the echoes of the mirror fading into the silence. The forest seemed alive, aware, but no longer threatening. And as the first true sunlight touched his face, Eli understood. The forest had not been punishing him. It had been teaching him. The mirror, the shadows, the whispers, they had all been lessons in facing fear, guilt, and obsession. Yet as he walked into the light, a faint shimmer of the mirror flickered between the trees, a subtle reminder that some journeys never truly end. That night, the forest remembered him, and he remembered the forest. Eli's steps were hesitant, each one resonating against the damp soil beneath him. The golden path glimmered faintly, guiding him forward, but the calm was deceptive. The forest seemed to breathe, shifting subtly, whispering of things half forgotten. He reached a small glade where the sunlight pooled like liquid gold. At its center lay a broken stone pedestal, moss overtaking its edges. Something shimmered atop it, a shard of mirror, cracked and clouded, reflecting only fragments of the world. Not again, Eli thought, heart hammering. The mirror's shard pulsed faintly, and from its surface, faint whispers rose, like a choir of lost memories. Faces, shadowed, familiar, swirled in its reflection. Eli's own reflection wavered, splitting into countless fragments, each echoing a different fear, a different regret. He stepped closer. The whispers coalesced into a single voice, soft yet urgent. You cannot forget. You cannot hide. Eli swallowed, his throat dry. I understand, he murmured. I've seen what I must see. I've faced it all. The forest responded. The mist thickened around the glade, forming tendrils that curled like living fingers. Shapes emerged, indistinct but purposeful, circling him. He recognized them now, all the apparitions he had glimpsed over his journey. Each represented a fear, a guilt, or an obsession he had carried. This is the trial. The final reckoning. Eli's knees trembled, but he stood firm. The shard of mirror rose slightly, suspended in the air as if acknowledging his resolve. Shadows leaned closer, whispering of missteps, lost chances, and moments where he had turned away. "You cannot run," the chorus said. "You cannot deny what lingers within." Eli closed his eyes. The forest went silent, the whispers stopping abruptly. He drew in a deep breath, feeling the pulse of life around him, the quiet rhythm of trees and wind, of earth and sky. "I will not deny it," he said. "I will not hide. I accept it all, the fear, the obsession, the guilt. I will carry it, learn from it, and let it guide me forward." A sudden wind swept through the glade, scattering the mist and illuminating the shard. The reflections of the lost memories shimmered, then dissolved into the light. The shapes surrounding him bowed and faded into the forest floor, leaving only the serene glade and the soft hum of life. Eli sank to the ground, exhausted, his body trembling but his mind clearer than it had ever been. For the first time, the forest felt alive without threat. Every tree, every leaf, every whisper of wind seemed to honor his resolve. Freedom is not escape. It is confrontation. The shard of mirror fell gently to the ground, lifeless, but Eli knew its lesson remained. The forest had tested him, forcing him to face the parts of himself he had hidden, the shadows that haunted his soul. And now he had emerged, not unscathed, but whole. As he rose and began walking back through the forest, the path seemed wider, the sunlight warmer, and the whispers gentler. He was still alone, yet he carried the memory of every shadow, every fear, every lesson. The forest had not just tested him, it had transformed him. And yet, deep within the shifting mist, a faint glimmer remained, subtle and almost imperceptible, like a memory half remembered. Eli understood then that some echoes never fade, and some journeys never truly end. Eli emerged from the forest, his clothes damp and torn at the edges, but his steps purposeful. The morning light did not blind him. It illuminated a world that felt both familiar and new. Every shadow he had fled from, every whisper of fear, had led him here to a place of quiet reckoning. He paused at a high ridge overlooking the valley below. Mist still clung to the trees, winding through the hills like a living memory. He watched it shift and dissolve, carrying the shadows of the night with it. For the first time in weeks, he felt unburdened, not because the darkness was gone, but because he had faced it. "I am not what haunts me. I am what endures," he thought, pressing a hand to his chest. A rustle nearby drew his attention. A fox, slender and alert, emerged from the underbrush. Its amber eyes met his, curious yet unafraid. In that moment, Eli felt a strange kinship. The forest had been alive with lessons, with fears, with echoes, and now, like the fox, he could move forward without hesitation. As he descended into the valley, memories of the journey replayed in his mind. The eerie whispers, the shifting shadows, the reflection in the broken mirror, all had challenged him to confront what he had long denied: the guilt of inaction, the obsession with outcomes he could not control, the fear of failing himself. And each challenge had revealed a fragment of courage he had never known. He reached a clearing where a small stream traced its way over smooth stones, the water sparkling like molten silver. Kneeling, he let his fingers trail through it, feeling the cold rush over his skin. The sound was soothing, a natural hymn that seemed to cleanse more than just his hands. His reflection looked back at him, tired but steady. Eyes that had seen shadows now saw light, and the echo of fear no longer commanded him. "I have carried you long enough," he whispered, speaking to the shadows that lingered in the corners of his mind. I release you. But I remember you. I remember what you taught me." The wind rose, sweeping through the valley with quiet reverence, lifting leaves and scattering them in a slow, deliberate dance. Eli followed the stream as it wound toward the village he had avoided for so long. Each step was measured, intentional. Each heartbeat was a testament to endurance and resolve. As he approached the edge of the trees, a faint shimmer caught his eye, the same ethereal light that had guided him through the forest's darkest heart. It lingered for only a moment, then vanished, leaving a sense of both comfort and unease. Some echoes, he realized, never fully leave. They remain to remind the living that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to walk through it. Step by trembling step, Eli paused, letting the lesson sink in. He would carry the memory of this forest, its whispers and shadows, forever. Yet he also understood that his journey was no longer about fleeing or surviving. It was about living with clarity, with empathy, and with the quiet power of confronting darkness without surrender. The forest had not taken from him. It had given him the gift of understanding, tempered by fear, guided by resolve. And with that, he stepped into the sunlit path that led to the village, leaving behind the forest, but never the truths it had revealed.